Okay, this is my TG deck profile for the 2012 September format. I'm doing a revision of my current deck, and this is not a stun deck. I noticed a lot of people post stun decks, so I'm doing my own originality on this deck. I run 3 TG Cyber Magician. It's a basic 1-star light tuner, which actually is really good with this specific deck. Most people don't run it, but I choose to since I'm not running a stun deck. I won 1 TG Striker, self-explanatory. 3 TG Warwolf, which is actually a really good creature depending on how you use it, and you have to. It's very flexible. I used 3 TG Rush Rhino, which is the main beater of the deck. This is the basic TG engine, and I'll explain what other combos I can do with it in a minute. I main 2 DD Crow. Most people do not run DD Crow or main it because it's kind of an iffy card, but the DD Crow does mess up a lot of plays. It stops windups and sectors to an extent, Chaos Dragon. It stops Pot of Avarice, Monster Reborn. It stops a lot of plays, and most people honestly don't see it coming. I mean, 2 Effect Veiler, which is pretty straightforward. It works really good because the way this meta is, you need Effect Veiler. I run 1 Sangan for searching, 1 Grand Mole as a tech card because with the new release of the 10, Zen main, everybody's going to be running Zen mains, so you need to answer to it. I run 1 Plague Spreader. The reason why I run Plague Spreader is because since Konami only gave left TG Striker limited to 1, you need another Toon Star tuner to work with the Warwolf. And Plague Spreader is actually a really good card because if you play it right, you can reuse it another time.
Question.
Yes.
If you had a Max C, would you main Max C?
No, I would not main Max C because as far as deck room, I think this is going to be a slower format, so I would not run Max C. I run 1 Gores, 2 Trags, basic hand defense, and also the way that this deck works, it adds a lot to hand, and you really do maintain a lot of hand advantage. So especially going first, Trag is actually a really good having first hand. I main 1 Chaos Sorcerer, 1 BLS, because the fact that with the 3 Warwolves and 3 Cyber Magician, you actually have no problem getting lights and darks because they search each other out. And I main 2 Kin Cabillo, which working with Cyber Magician, it allows you a lot of flexibility, and it does give very good options as far as like sinking and exceeding. I mean, at least sinking anyway. My Magic and Trap cards, I run 1 Dark Hole, 1 Heavy Storm, 1 Monster Reborn,
Staples,
1 Pot of Avarice, yeah, that's a super, 1 for 1, yeah, that's a super. I run 1 Book of Moon, pretty basic staple.
No
I run
super.
2 MSTs. I would run 3, but I think 2 is good enough, and I also have other ways of getting it. I run triple Lance because the way this deck works, Lance is a beastie card. It's very good. And because you want to protect the synchros, because the high level synchros do need protection from compulses and bottomlesses. And also, as a quick play, most people don't expect it. Most people use it defensively. I also do main 2 Miracle Synchro Fusion. Now, I'll explain why I main these in a moment. As far as traps go, it's pretty straightforward. It's 2 EM1s, 2 DX2s, 2 Torrentials, and 2 Mirror Forces. I use 2 Mirror Forces because within sectors being crippled, it's a good format because the format's going to be slowed down enough. 2 Torrentials are straightforward. And especially with TGs, you don't really care if a regular TG is destroyed with Torrential because you're still going to bonus. Especially, you also need to recycle, so recycling with EM with the DX2 is going to be good because you can get and also maintain hand advantage. EM1, let's face it, you know, stealing somebody's creature at the right moment can really fuck up plays, and most people honestly don't see it coming.
And what is the deck count, sir?
The deck count is 45.
Why 45?
I will explain why it's at 45 in a moment. My extra deck is 1 Formula Synchron, 1 TG Recipro Dragonfly, I use 2 Power Gladiators because they are a good beater and it's also versatile. And if I need to, I can also side it out. 1 Librarian, 2 Wonder Magician. I used to run 3, but I found it's kind of cloggy at times, and most of the time you don't really ever need to go into 3. And yes, these are alties. I run 2 Blade Blaster. 1 is usually enough, but I run 2 because you never know. There's always a time that I could go into 2. I run 1 TG Halberd Cannon. This is personal preference. obviously I know Quasar Dragon is a lot better, but I prefer one Halberd Cannon. One Stardust, one Shooting Star, one Quasar. I run a Quasar and a Halberd because I like the option. Most often I'll go into the Quasar, but sometimes I'll go into the Halberd Cannon. And I also run two Supreme Arknight Magician. Now the reason I run the Supreme Arknight Magician because with the Cyber Magicians, you can get an easy level. Going into the Wonder Magician in this deck is very simple. Because all you do is you go into Cyber Magician, go into a Wonder Magician, pop a back row, and then even if they destroy it, you still bonus. And if these are in your graveyard, all you have to do is top deck a Miracle Synchro Fusion, and you have an automatic 3400 beater out of nowhere by simply removing stuff that was already in the graveyard pre-existing. So there's no loss, and most people honestly will not expect this coming at 3400. It is a very good top deck. Now, as far as side deck, my side deck is a work in progress, and this is personal preference. I run one Burial from the Different Dimension. Because you do remove a lot with TGs, especially with the Blade Blaster, so it's an option. I side two Forbidden Chalice. Quick play, it doubles off of Lance, and because of Ryakos and Snowman Eaters and other stuff that usually Effect Veiler can't touch, Chalice picks it off. I run two Save Zones. The reason why I side Save Zone, is because if I go into a Wonder Magician and I don't have a viable target for a back row, but my opponent has a creature, I'll summon the Wonder Magician, wait for their response, and if they choose nothing, I'll choose my own back row. And more often than not, if I choose my own back row, you're not going to really do anything to it, and I would flip Save Zone targeting your creature, and at that point, unless you have a Forbidden Lance or something, I will take that out and then take your creature. So in either case, I can either hit a back row or I can hit a creature, which is actually a really good play, which most people honestly don't think about. I also side two Battle Fader because there are times that Battle Fader does come in good, especially against Light Sworns. You just don't see it coming. And because Light Sworns can do mill uncontrollably, Battle Fader is a good option because most people don't expect it. Also, I do side extra deck. Most people don't do this, but this is personal preference. I side one Armory Arm, one Cataster. I side Cataster with the new format, agents, and possibly Light Sworns, so it's a good tech option. Ancient Fairy Dragon, just for field spells, because with the Seal of Orichalcos coming out, you need to have some way to get over it, and it's a good 3000 defense just in case. One Black Rose. I don't main Black Rose because there's hardly any situation where Black Rose really helps, especially with Effect Veiler around. But the way that this deck works, and I'll explain why. Thought Ruler Archfiend, with Magic Cylinder being at 3, Forbidden Lance, Chalice, D-Prison, Thought Ruler is a very good option because it does stop a lot of plays. One Scrap Dragon. With TGs, it's very good because the way TGs work, you can destroy and still bonus and still hit your opponent's back row. One Mistworm, self-explanatory because with Konami banning Brio, you need some kind of removal to bounce, and Mistworm is pretty straightforward. And one Decisive Armor. Decisive Armor is just a beat stick, and just in case, the same thing with Light Sworns for Fairy Agent. If you can pull it off, you can devastate an opponent's hand, which is actually really good. Now I'll explain some of the combos I have for the deck. As far as the TG engine, the reason why I run King Cabillo is if I special a Cyber Magician, okay, and I have a Rush Rhino in hand, that allows me to go into an instant 5, which, let's say, is going to be a Wonder Magician, for instance. Okay, and then, also, if I special the Cyber Magician...
You're at 9 minutes.
Special the Cyber Magician, and then I can special the Werewolf from hand, and then there's a 5 sitting right there. And then from here, I can go into a Stardust or another 8. And since I can do it on my opponent's turn, you can play a mind game with them, so you can or you can just let it sit there and fake them out. Also, with the Cyber Magician, you can go into a Formula Synchron, which is also a good option. Well, as soon as I can figure out what it is. You can go into a Formula Synchron, and with the same thing with the Werewolf, if you go into Formula, you can draw a card, special the Werewolf, and you can also sit on another Wonder Magician on your opponent's turn. So if they set a back row, they try to do something stupid, you can declare your sync on their turn, and blow something up. Also, another reason why I use TG Recipro Dragonfly, either with Formula Synchron And a level 5,
10.
you can either sit on a black rose on your opponent's turn, either with the Dragonfly and the Wonder Magician, or the Librarian and the Formula Synchron. Either way, you can sit on a black rose on their turn, which cannot be effect veilered and can't be judgment, short of using a warning, which obviously that's the only thing that can really stop it. It does work. Basically, also going with Trag. Usually, if you're going first, there are times when I get a dead hand and I'll have a Trag sitting in hand. I'll usually set a TG monster, let them hit it, and more often than not, if they overextend and drop another creature, I'll lose one TG and then be able to drop a Trag, and at end turn, I'll search for another TG, which puts my hand already back at 5 cards, so it's at 3,000. Plus the additional card I draw, which lets it go to 36 on the first turn, which more often than not, especially going first, most opponents won't see that coming. With Gores, it works pretty good because if I let them hit me, I'll drop Gores in the token. If I have a Cyber Magician in the graveyard, I can bring back Kinkabil, bring it back, use the token to sync with or Gores depending, and I can go into a Stardust or a Scrap Dragon or Thought Ruler and still have Gores as a backup, so just in case they destroy it. Or also, if I go into the Stardust, and then next turn, if they don't do anything, I can resummon it, use the effect again, sync, and then go into a Formula Synchron, which then lets me go into a Shooting Star Dragon, which is actually pretty good because, once again, most people don't see it coming. Or, also, another play you can play off of this is you can also go into a TG Blade Blaster, because it requires a 1-tuner synchro and a non-tuner, and most often if you see a Stardust and a Formula, you won't see it. You'll think I'm going to go into a Shooting Star, and I've actually faked out a lot of opponents by going into a Blade Blaster, which there are situations where the Blade Blaster is more effective than the Shooting Star is. Now, as far as like the Quasar, the easiest way of doing it is either using a Wonder Magician, a Dragonfly, and a Librarian, which is my instant 12. Or if the Wonder Magician is an option, I'll use the Formula Synchron, and I'll use a Power Gladiator, which is the same thing. So I have 2 different options in which to go into. Either way, I can still go into it, which is pretty straightforward. Now, as far as how I go into like the Blade Blaster, 2 5s, which is straightforward. Go to sync for 10. Go into the Blade Blaster. Now, this is where the Kinkabil comes in. Use its effect, special a Cyber Magician, bring it back, sync, bring out the Dragonfly, use the Dragonfly's effect to send, and bring those 2 back. Now with that, I could either bring out the Halberd Cannon at that point, or I could bring the Quasar out. Whichever one, and since Wonder Magician's a quick effect, I can go into a 12 as well. With Plague Spreader, it's pretty straightforward. If you get the Werewolf on the field, you can go with sync for 5. Also, if it's already sitting in the graveyard pre-existing, you can use Plague Spreader's effect to special it, and the way the Werewolf works, you can special the Werewolf from hand, so it's kind of like a Striker effect, and you're not giving up your normal summon, so you can sync for 5 again, and also going into a Wonder Magician or a Librarian, or whichever the situation suits. This is my deck profile. Those are some of the strategies I use. Also, before I go, another thing that I've noticed that most people really do get pissed off about, especially with a Blade Blaster. If I have a Blade Blaster in a set, which is pretty devious, on their turn, if they try to do something or they bring a BLS or something out me, I'll use the Blade Blaster's effect to remove, by removing a TG, and then chain link 2, I'll chain EM1, and if they don't respond, which switches control to my opponent, and then the Blade Blaster removes itself. So in essence, I'm getting to steal a free creature for absolutely nothing. And then I still get my Blade Blaster during my standby phase. I hope you like my deck profile. Leave any comments and rates at the bottom. Thank you.